What's up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. A group of Taiwanese legislators is visiting Paraguay as growing pro-China voices within the government there could threaten the allies' relationship. Katie's Quaranta has more.
A group of cross-party Taiwanese lawmakers has landed in Paraguay, hoping to deepen ties between the country's legislatures. While meeting with their counterparts, the group called Paraguay a steadfast friend to Taiwan. It's one of just 12 countries that still maintain formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan instead of China, and the only in South America, as Beijing increasingly tries to poach Taiwan's allies in the hopes of isolating it. But experts say pro-China voices have been growing in Paraguay. One group of Paraguayan lawmakers recently visited China, and another lawmaker said this in a recent interview with Chinese state media.
It's only a matter of time for Paraguay to finally become part of the 183 countries that recognize China and leave the mere 12 countries that recognize Taiwan. The parliament is advising the president of Paraguay that we should evaluate the possibility of establishing diplomatic and commercial relations with China, reaching a consensus that aligns with the interests of all the Paraguayan people.
One expert says all of this indicates slow but widening support for a diplomatic switch, driven by pressure from agriculture and business communities in Paraguay who want access to Chinese markets, and by China-friendly opposition parties, as well as a faction within the ruling party.
While still a minority opposition, who has a pro-China sentiment is becoming more vocal and more organized, and more politically acceptable than in previous years.
This doesn't mean a switch will happen anytime soon. Experts say ties are still relatively stable now. Paraguay's president has repeatedly said he remains committed to Taiwan and indicated cutting ties is not a possibility. Last year, the country kicked out a Chinese envoy for allegedly urging the country to switch relations. There's also a lot of cooperation and exchanges. Taiwan's foreign minister was just in Paraguay in July. A Paraguayan governor is on a visit to Taiwan right now. And a delegation of Paraguayan officials recently met with Taiwan's representative to the U.S., emphasizing that bilateral relations are strong. The risk of a switch could come in the future, particularly if a China-friendly opposition party wins the presidency. This would be a huge loss for Taiwan. It has only 12 diplomatic allies left and is working hard to hang on to them. Ke says the flurry of recent visits between the two sides could be a response to this risk.
So Taiwan is reinforcing ties amid a growing China-friendly rhetoric in Paraguay's Congress, especially given that a Paraguayan opposition party delegation has recently visited China for economic and cooperation opportunities. While Taiwan's delegation, which is composed of all three parties in the Legislative Yuan, could announce new cooperation projects and offer tangible benefits to counter pro-China's economic argument within Paraguay's Congress.
So while ties may be stable now, there are warning signs for the future, meaning Taiwan may need to work even harder to shore up ties with its only ally in South America. Justin Wu and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
The government has indicted 7 people, including one from Hong Kong, for their roles in an alleged Chinese spy ring.
中国确实对于我们的这个渗透作为是日趋严重了哈。那对于这些有关这些有接触机密的人，我们也都要加以进行查核。事实上，这个案子也是在我们内部进行这一个查核的时候，所发现的所以我们还是会不断的精进。
This case broke when the military looked into an officer for suspicious activity. That led to the discovery of an illegal spy ring and the prosecution of 2 active military personnel. Prosecutors say the ring received more than $350,000 to support the operation. It comes amid a surge in espionage cases in Taiwan, with 168 prosecuted on espionage charges last year. That was double the previous year and 6 times the year before that. For a wider view on why the number of spy cases has gone up and what it could mean moving forward, our reporter Larry Ciano spoke to KJ Xu, a judge with the Taipei District Court's National Security and Military Division.
Why do you think espionage case numbers have gone up in recent years?
So there are two main reasons. First, formal and informal cross-strait communication has sharply decreased recently. So the CCP relies more on covert information gathering. Second, China pieces together small bits of information to strengthen its leverage and gray zone pressure on Taiwan.
How do you think Taiwan can continue to strengthen its defenses against espionage and this type of Chinese infiltration?
First, encourage earlier internal reporting rather than creating fear through punishment by national security laws. People in the military must feel safe to speak it out. Second, provide incentive for reporting espionage. Many institutions lack counterintelligence unit, so reporting is very essential. Catching spies should be seen as a positive sign instead of a sign of poor discipline. It reflects more attempt infiltrations, not institution failure. Successful detection shows our system work and that Taiwan is becoming more resilient as this threat spreads across society. So we should encourage investigations across institutions, both in the military and the non-military. If we only blame instead of encourage, we will have more espionage activity in Taiwan. I think we should increasing a little bit for the sentence. And also for the criminal due process, we also need some improvement of evidence. Like we need more collaborations with our allies from outside to sign kind of intelligence sharing MOU to strengthen our abilities and provide more solid evidence on the trial. We should balance between human rights protections and espionage regulations. If we do too less, that will make espionage activity increase. If we do more, it will become another authoritarian power.
That was KJ Xu, a judge from the Taipei District Court. China is promising major consequences for Japan as the two countries clash over the new prime minister's statements on Taiwan. The two sides have been going back and forth for days as China demands a retraction, while Japan has the backing of the U.S. Tiffany Wong reports.
No Japanese fish for China. Beijing is cutting imports, the latest in the back and forth between the two countries. It all concerns comments new Prime Minister Takaichi Sanai made earlier this month about Taiwan. She said a Chinese invasion could be grounds for Japan to mobilize its self-defense forces. Now, China says tensions are so bad there wouldn't be a market for Japanese fish, and that more consequences will come if Japan does not issue a retraction. But Japan has not backed down, lodging its own complaints against China. A since-deleted threat posted on social media by China's consul general in Osaka has especially drawn attention.
Regarding the extremely inappropriate remarks made recently by China's consul general in Osaka, Shui Jian, Kensai Masaki, the director general of the Japanese Foreign Ministry's Asian Affairs Office, once again lodged a strong protest and firmly called for China to take immediate, appropriate action.
Japan sent an envoy to Beijing to try and soothe tensions, but the comments have already drawn the attention of U.S. officials, with U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chair Jim Risch calling the statement over the top and highly inappropriate. And the former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security Affairs also chiming in.
The statement by the Chinese Consul General in Osaka is absolutely outrageous. Particularly in light of the political assassination of Shinzo Abe very recently, to actually threaten the life of the prime minister is outrageous. Japan's government is perfectly capable of making decisions on how to address that without advice from any of us, but it seems to me it should be disqualifying for future office in Japan, for sure.
Now, China is holding live-fire drills in the Yellow Sea. It's also issued a warning to Chinese citizens against travel to Japan. The U.S. House Select Committee on China also weighed in, saying that the U.S. stands with Japan against China's attempted coercion and intimidation. But China's tactics are already making an impact in Japan. Chinese visitors are the biggest group of foreign tourists there, and many have been canceling their trips, causing Japanese tourism and retail stocks to drop.
在这期间受到的影响其实非常大。昨天我们取消了大概是6件左右，占10%，然后今天是取消了大概是10件左右，综合应该是20件左右，所以占据了我们80%的市场。
Several Chinese airlines offered refunds on routes to Japan before the end of the year, and Chinese tourists already in Japan said they're worried about the relationship between the two countries.
Japan's economy really depends on tourists. I hope we can all respect each other so that things can improve for Japan, for us Chinese people, for Hong Kong, and for everyone.
My parents actually shared the news with me just literally in the morning before I came. So I felt like it's another political maybe conversation between these two countries, because we've planned everything, so we still decided to come.
Japan has also issued its own warning for its citizens in China, urging them not to get together in places seen as gathering sites for Japanese. As the back and forth between the two countries continue, Japan's close partners, the U.S. and Taiwan, will be watching closely. Chris Ma and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Is Taiwan energy resilient? A forum in Taipei welcomed German energy policy experts and U.S. defense experts to discuss weaknesses in the national grid as it faces threats from China.
Of course, nuclear energy is more independent than fossil fuels, for exactly the reason you mentioned. In the long run, however, you still depend on the suppliers for the nuclear material. So you gain some independence because you don't need regular supplies, but the best solution would still be betting on renewable energies.
The panel said a complete phase-out of fossil fuel is needed for Taiwan to survive longer if a Chinese blockade cuts off its energy supply. But experts added that it's up to Taiwan's people to decide if it should bring back nuclear power or invest in renewable energy. Besides choosing energy sources that would better secure its power supply, the country also needs to be ready to accept help from other nations.
I fully expect this country, probably led by the United States, to organize escort convoys to break the blockade and force China to decide, do you want war or do you allow this convoy to go through? When they offload the ships, offload the LNG and oil, and if it isn't a plan to organize it, to receive it, to distribute it, then it's not helping the people of Taiwan.
Taiwan shut down its last nuclear power plant in May and voted to stay nuclear-free after a referendum in August. Taiwan's opposition parties are open to cooperating against the ruling Democratic Progressive Party in upcoming elections. That was the message in a meeting between Kuomintang Chair Zheng Liwen and Taiwan People's Party Chair Huang Guocang.
怎么样合作，为各个县市的台湾人民带来最好的地方治理，绝对是我们下一个阶段必须要共同面对的问题。这绝对不只是选举的输赢，这攸关的是台湾接下来选择的道路。
This was the first meeting between the party's leaders since Zheng took over as KMT chair. The two parties hold a slight majority in Taiwan's legislature and have worked together to overrule the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. Zheng and Huang committed to working together in next year's local elections. The two parties had attempted to form a joint ticket during the 2024 presidential elections, but that plan fell through. The DPP responded to Zheng and Huang's meeting by saying it was simply a reason to attack the ruling party and that neither opposition party was serious about bringing Taiwan together. And thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, let's end today with an art installation at COP30, where a Brazilian artist used ashes from fires in the Amazon to call for urgent forest protection. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.